Hello, everyone, and welcome to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor v World. I'm your host, Shannon Guss, here for another preseason podcast for the people who do and don't know about David Genat. Well, you're about to learn all about it. At the time that I'm recording this, it's an interesting time for David, who is kind of rumored in the hosting spot. JLP has just left. By the time it's released, at an undetermined date, because we don't know when the season is happening and we're just working on the fly here. But at the time that this is released, who knows? He could be officially announced as a host, or we could have been completely wrong. But it's a very transient time for David Genat, a recent multi-millionaire from Deal or No Deal Island. I'm going to welcome in someone who covered that season, then went back and watched the David seasons on Survivor. We're going to talk about David. It is a great Chappell. Chappell, thank you for being here.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm very excited. I've been trying to infiltrate the Australian Survivor streets for a very long time, but you famously were gatekeeping the entire continent for me. And so now, yeah, exactly. And now I have broken through, and I am the foremost expert of Deal or No Deal Island here. I'm proclaiming that because I can. They're not here. My co-hosts are not here. And so, yes, I'm very happy to talk about an alum of Deal or No Deal Island, but also someone who I've now seen play Survivor with my own eyes. It's going to be so much fun.
Yes, I feel like you're a big David fan.
I am.
Few and far between at the moment that we're recording. Like, again, with David being speculated as the host, some people are pretty angry at David for that, which I think is a bit ridiculous because, like,
right. You took a job offer.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like some people are like not living in the real world of like, how could he do that? It's like, what person? Am I a bad person that I'm like, anyone would do that? I would do that.
Like, oh, yeah. No, I'm definitely going to turn down a job hosting a show that is like amazing, like an amazing show like Australian Survivor. I'm definitely going to turn that down just because, y'all want me to. That's definitely what I'm going to do. Like, I didn't take into consideration what y'all wanted. My bad. I got bills, and although David has won a lot of money over the years,
David doesn't have bills. Yeah, to be fair,
he definitely probably has things that he wants to accomplish and things that he wants to do. And I think that is a crazy opportunity. Shannon, if we called you tomorrow and we're like, hey, we're pushing Jeff out, we need you to take over as our new host for US Survivor. Are you in?
I thought you were going to say Rob.
No, you.
No, I thought you were going to say if we're pushing Rob out as opposed to Rob as a podcast.
No. Even bigger.
I owe nothing to Jeff. I owe, like
what if Tim Play wanted you to host Australian Survivor?
Yeah, I mean, look, I humbly accept. No, I think look, what it actually is it's this. David should be then also it'll be funny if he's like not host or whatever by the time this is out. But like based on the rumors, what it is that David should be able to take that opportunity. It's for his platform. As we said, he has a lot of money now. However, he should still be able to go for his dreams and like achieve professional success. And actually what it is that the network, Endemol/10 or whatever production, they make those decisions. They're the ones with the agency to make those decisions. Accepting that is not on David. For me, and I've talked about this to death this week, but like for me, if it's those are just two people in the same situation as being controlled by the powers that be, which is the network and the production company, that's not on David. However, what it becomes is if David is doing this for his platform and for the job opportunity, is it worse for him to take that opportunity? Like you said, would I be Jeff? Would I be JLP? If I go and do that to be like, I'm going to raise my profile, but then everyone's like, I hate you. Is that good for my profile? That's the question. But whether he should be entitled to do it is 100% fine.
Man, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. I'm a Big Brother fan, a day one Big Brother fan, unfortunately. And I have seen us go full circle on Julie Chinbot. Okay, they went from like where like she is not a good host. I don't know what's going on. She doesn't watch the show, and now it's camp. We all are like, it's fine. She doesn't know what's going on. It's fine. We like that. She's reading off the teleprompter. It's fine. Crazy things are happening behind her, and she's not gonna act. She's not gonna react. That's fine too. And then sometimes she's gonna pop out with a like fuck ass Bob, and everybody's gonna get like go up for it. It's just like that's just what she does. And so the people who like Australian Survivor will show up. I don't understand. We're very sad. As a person who has recently started watching the show, I too am sad to see a JLP go. But the show will go on. It'll be okay. And we would be much sadder if they cancel the show altogether. So make no mistake, I'm happy that there is a host, especially a host that we know and we know that respects the game. Well, yeah, I'm saying in this potential timeline where everybody's complaining about David, at least it's somebody that we know respects the game and that is entertaining. It could be way worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, and as we should say, this is kind of similar. I did this with Tara, but did the Sari podcast with Taryn, and we were talking about the people who complain.
You did, hold on, pause. You did the Sari podcast with Taryn?
Yep.
Was I dead?
You're doing the David podcast right now. Everyone gets one person. I gave you David.
That is my mom. That's crazy. Taryn. Wow.
Okay. Well,
Wow.
Chappell.
Okay.
Would you prefer Sari to David? Because that's not great for the David podcast.
It's tough, man. Sari is transcended shows for me at this point, and so is David. So I love them both, and I'm very excited to see what happens when they line up and they meet each other on the island.
Well, what I was saying was that with Taryn, we were talking about the people who say that Sari's been on too many of these shows, and me and Taryn were disagreeing. I'm like, well, it would be bad if you didn't, because you're the Sari expert and you were the David expert, even though you're complaining about it now. So of course you're happy to see David possibly get an opportunity. Absolutely. Also, you just watched his season, so you're the perfect person to be the David expert, and I will not be challenged on this. I'm definitely correct, because okay, so you watched David on Dylan O'Dell Island, you loved him. You went back, you watched all of Australian Survivor. Did you watch every season?
Yes, with an asterisk. I've seen every season, but the murkiest season for me, because I watched it kind of like in the real time, like off and on, was Blood versus Water.
That's fine. You're fine. That's fine.
Exactly. And so like there's like a middle area that I don't really remember. And I didn't go back and rewatch it. So don't ask me any questions dealing with that are not started with. So when Sandra did what? Yeah. So like I had to go support my other mom, So I'm back now.
Okay. Mom,
but everything else, everything else, I'm there.
Okay. So let's talk about David. I mean, David is just a huge person in reality TV right now and generally. What did you think of David when did it live up to the hype when you watched him on Survivor?
I met David kind of in his like like in his elder statesman era. Because I didn't know younger version of David watching Dundee. It's kind of like meeting Boston Rob on Dundee, right? You're like, oh, this older gentleman is a game player. That's cool, like so for me, it's like he's not like he's young energy, but it's kind of like I didn't meet the like supermodel, with the Harley jacket, the leather jacket and all this other stuff, like on a beach. Like I didn't meet that guy, so I kind of meet him in like his youth. I was like, oh, he's incredible television. It makes total sense why they would put him on Dundee. And watching his first season of Survivor, the way he was playing and watching his profile on Dundee as well, I did not know that he wasn't going to go as far, further into that season, I will say. So then I was like, oh, dang, they got him. I was very upset. And I was like, well, I've heard he plays again. I can't wait to go watch it. And I heard it was a very dominating game. I go watch it. And my first impression is that David does the things that Survivor players dream about doing. Like he takes the big swings. He does the things like, what if I made a fake idol and like gave it to somebody and told them it was fake, like it was real, and then like swapped them out for that? Like the things that you cook up in your mind that was like fan fiction, he goes and does it, and he does it in an entertaining way. It's like if Russell Hantz had a social game, it's like if he wasn't an awful, like, mean person, but he was like actually funny and likable and people actually gravitated to him. And then he was also doing cool stuff with idols and all this other stuff. So it's like, I have no notes. This was just an incredible TV character and so fun to watch across the 3 seasons of TV that I've watched him on.
Yeah, I mean, David invented a lot of things. Like, I feel like he was really like a pioneer of like the mole vote, which he does with Daisy at the beginning of All Stars. Obviously, as we talked about with the Idol, I mean, his whole journey from the beginning, like he was a revelation from the beginning of Champions versus Contenders 2. And like to talk through, like I was really thinking about, and you've watched it much more recently than me, but I was thinking about like his journey through that season to immediately come back. I mean, he was on the island when he got voted out on TV was like the week that they started All Star. So that the crazy thing about it is like not only was he like the Tony star, like how did Tony win Winners at War, like he was the one on everyone's radar, but it's like if Kagayan had aired as they went out. They had just watched everything, I think, except pretty much his boot episode, or maybe the episode before, when they went out. He was the most present thing in their mind, and he won so definitively, which is so impressive. So even from 2019, like that whole journey, even though he gets voted out right after the merge, that whole pre-merge, which is like a whole new era season, really, is ridiculous. Like starting off from the pre-swap where there's like a really like not unlikable, but like we're not rooting for that like athletes alliance, and then like all the people you like just like peel back the most likable athletes, Ross and Abby, to have like it's like an alliance of all the people you want to work together. It was a dream. With Pia and Janine and Luke, which is going to be important because many of them are on AUV World. And we'll talk about David in like as like the nexus, I think, of AUV World. But even from that, in the pre-swap, like that was such a moment that they like won that battle. And then going in through the swap, and they have power, then we'll talk about it. They like lose power because Sean Hampson comes over and he gave Sean Hampson a fake idol. He didn't like that. Then he has to play his idol to save himself. Like, this is just in the pre-merge, Chappell. Like, you must have been like, what a journey. And we've only just begun.
Yeah, the idol swap thing is incredible. Like that is probably like the coolest thing I've ever seen, because David, if I remember correctly, he doesn't have an idol. He finds out that Janine has an idol.
Yeah.
And,
well,
and he's,
it was a really cool twist, and they should do it all the time. They planted an idol for the other beach on each beach. So you couldn't use it yourself, but you had to find the person on the other tribe who did it and swap. However, David hadn't found the idol. Sean Hampson found the idol on the other tribe. Janine found it, and she wouldn't give it to him because she wanted to keep it in case like they became the swap tribe or whatever that could use that idol. So David made a fake idol and passed it to Sean Hampson, who did not realize for a very good long time. And Sean Hampson gave David his real idol.
But even the read of Sean has it is incredible, because how did David know that of all the people on the other tribe, it was Sean? He knew who the mark was. He goes to him like, "Hey, Sean, I found an idol, and I suspect you might have found an idol." And Sean's like, "Oh my God, how'd you know?" You're like, it's like, no, how did you know? How did you know that was the guy you should be going to? It could have been anybody, and it was Sean. And so he goes back, and then he comes back with his fake idol, and he gives it to Sean. He swaps him out. And now he's walking around with this man's idol while Sean is over there thinking he's in like some weird alliance with David. And this whole time, David's just like, "I just hope he gets voted out before he comes over here." like, please just take him out of the game before he gets over here. And then Sean comes over there. Like, he's looking at Sean in the eye, knowing that he gave this man a fake idol, and Sean still doesn't know he's fake. It was incredible TV. I'm telling you, I was so surprised that this is what we were doing, because again, I think these are things that you make up in your mind when you think of like the game you would play on Survivor. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to, do this thing. I'm going to trick this person. I'm going to align with somebody who nobody would suspect. He was doing all of those things and more.
Yeah, well, he went to the swap tribe and got power. Like, they were okay. He and Luke are together. Like, he and Luke as this dynamic duo is such a massive part of that season, and getting it again, I think, is going to be very entertaining. But like, that duo, like, they pulled it over in the pre-swap. Then they get to the swap, they have the power, and then Sean Hampson gets kidnapped over because it's Australian Survivor, and they're like, oh no, like the one person, and Sean Hampson at that point, like, he knows about the idol and he's mad. He's like, "You gave me a fake idol. I gave you my real idol," and he's not happy. So he turns the contenders against them. And this was like a crazy vote where both Luke and David had idols that they played. David did negate a majority of votes, but they had been given the information by Andy, from what I remember, and you would remember better than me, but they'd been given the information by Andy, who wanted to vote out Daisy. They didn't know if they could trust Andy, and they had split the vote. In the end, they had split the vote on David and Hannah, and so Hannah ended up going home anyway. They tried to vote out Sean, thinking they could negate both sides of a Luke-David split. And then that's not what happened. So, but David had to save himself. Like, to be fair, and we'll talk about this a little bit because it happens in the next season, David's scheming did catch up with him in this vote, but then he protected himself.
Yeah, he should have voted out. He should have voted for Daisy. Daisy would have gone here, I think, if him and Luke vote for Daisy, just based on the numbers. Because it would have been his
Andy is what it was. So they were trying to protect it, and then
But so the thing is, at this point, he's kind of exposed, right? He's played his idol. His number one ally has played their idol. People know they're kind of on like, oh, they voted wrong. They should be the targets. He's also a big, like, beautiful man. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's up there. Like, you can't miss him. Okay, he's out here winning.
What a good-looking battle that was.
Like, the man is out here looking like he can win any challenge at any time. Like, there's no way he can hide, right? And so we know his back is against the wall at this point. We have to figure out a way to save him. And we get probably one of the coolest things I've seen on TV as far as Survivors, and that is the Survivor Cinema, which you told me about when we talked about Dundee. You were like, David goes and eats this popcorn. It's a whole thing. You were explaining it. You were like, you kind of had to be there. You had to see it. So I watched it. And no, it is incredible. Because for some reason, they let David go into the Survivor Cinema first, which is ridiculous. Why would you do this? But he goes in there first. He convinces us somehow to let him go in there. And he ransacks the place, goes through all the popcorn. Popcorn is pouring out onto the ground. While his like family video is playing in the background, he's barely watching it because he's smashing popcorn into his face and digging around for an idol. He finds it. And so the one person they didn't need to find an idol not only found it, but he's eating popcorn like a madman while his loved ones are playing in the background. You couldn't write better television.
Yeah, from memory, they were like, David and Luke should go first because they have kids. And then as soon as they sent them, they were like,
That wasn't
great.
great. Right. Yeah.
I made a huge mistake, like immediately.
Right.
We get this incredible, incredible moment. So David has an idol. Also from memory, what like they didn't go back to tribal council anyway before the merge, but were they looking at Andy then anyway? Was he kind of clawing his way out of that, or would he have needed the idol?
He would have needed the idol. That he would have
Right.
needed the idol right there. Andy was definitely like the one person who was kind of like, I need to play with David. Like he was kind of on the outs, you know, he's trying to like backstab Daisy. So he could like there's a non-zero chance that maybe there was something, but no, he was definitely next up on the chopping block for sure.
Yeah, and then they get to the merge and Andy goes. And then David wins immunity and Sean goes. And it was kind of that thing where, and then David immediately goes. It's one of those things where like a Josh and Jeremy thing where like there's a big battle, but you just go out back to back.
That's what it was. Wasn't it that they told the champions what was going on and that him and Luke were at the bottom and they started throwing challenges to save them? That's what it was.
Right.
So even that was another good move for him to like, hey, by the way, we're not going to make it if y'all don't start losing. So the other tribe starts losing. They just saved them. Yeah.
Because they had control on that other side. Again, that was like a Janine who's like running everything as the godmother. So again, that's going to be a very interesting relationship to track, which we can talk about, where they'll be reunited again for a third time on this season because they were together technically in The Apprentice, which David was on, Celebrity Apprentice, and Janine was like an advisor. And he was like trying to blindside her. It's like she's not a contestant in the show, David. And there was this whole like back and forth, which we can talk about because I think like, well, I've been thinking about like the pillars of people when I do these podcasts. And for me, there's like David as like great TV and then David as a great player. And a lot of the times, obviously that's emerged, but I think a lot of what he's trying to do often is in the pursuit of great TV, especially now that he's a multi-millionaire from Deal or No Deal Island. I think a lot of it will be like, how can I have the most fun? Help out my friends. Not that he's not trying to win and he's a competitive player and he's so good, of course, but I think a lot of it will be like, kind of like, what can I do from a TV perspective that's going to catapult me to maybe one day being like the host of Australian Survivor? So we can talk about that as well. But yeah, then he is turned on by his allies, not Luke, but like voted out with an idol in his pocket. And that's like the 2019 journey.
Well, that's the other part of his scheming that caught up to him is that when Andy is voted out on his way out, Andy's like, Dave has an idol, you know, and so like, oh no, like he did it, he outed him. And so
he didn't know that Dave had an idol. That he just guessed. And the funny thing was that was when I started talking about how they should be trapdoors. That was the genesis of the trapdoor conversation that we had, was Andy saying that.
Yeah, and I think to your point about David making good TV, I don't think David can play a game where he doesn't make good TV when it comes to Survivor. I think he has too big of a target on his back because of who he is. I think that now, especially, but even the first season, like he's like this pretty model guy who's like charming and people will look at him as a threat physically or whatever. The other tribe should want him gone. Your tribe should want him gone. And so he has to do inventive stuff like this in order to get himself further. I don't think he can just play like a straightforward game. I think his game is always going to be electrifying if he's going to go far. Because it's going to take things like the fake idol thing with Sean and things like that to kind of not only to keep him from being bored, but also to give him extra lifelines in the game. Like he needed that idol, you know, like it wasn't like one day he was never going to need to use it. David and idols have a great relationship in Survivor, even though he goes home with one. Maybe that's why they have such a great relationship, but he needs those idols. Like it's one of his powers is that like once he's able to kind of find and yield them, he's unstoppable.
Yeah, well, you talk about how he could never be not entertaining. And All Stars, to me, is not a season I enjoy. It's not David's fault. In some ways it is because he had such a cult-like lock on everyone. And this is probably like the most boring it's going to get from Dave. Now, he does some interesting things. We'll talk about it mostly in the first week where he, again, invents the mole vote to get revenge on Daisy, where they had just played together and take her out and work across the aisle with Matt Rogers, where he's like in the majority, but he helps Matt Rogers play the idol correctly to take out Daisy. And that's like probably the most interesting thing that happens because he just has such a death grip on the season after that. I know that some people thought the way that David was, like David from a TV perspective, I think this is true, works better as an underdog. And in All Stars, he was, for the most part, such an overdog. Like he's an underdog in 2019 most of the time. Again, they have to really pull it back against the athletes in the pre-swap. And then they have a little bit of power at the swap. And then he immediately loses. They have to play his idol. And then he's out shortly in the merge. Like in all three of those phases, he's fighting with Luke. And it's such a great narrative. However, in All Stars, we'll talk about maybe some bumps along the road, but it's few and far between because he just dominated so much. So it became this like OTT David screen time. Now, I love David. I was enjoying David. I was like, at least he's interesting, right? But definitely like at a point, I think this was the issue, is like he's such an extreme personality that it became a little bit much, I think, for some people. And like things, it became like he was punching down a little bit. Like on Phoebe, that's definitely a big one. But like Phoebe was the underdog and she's just trying her best. And he's like so extremely in power and turning on Phoebe. And like, I just remember that being kind of like a dark period of the season and a little bit toxic between David and Phoebe as well, because he's coming from this position of power compared to being like a lovable underdog, winning, like he and Luke like winning against all the odds in their first season together in 2019. And that was just like a very different dynamic for him from a TV perspective.
See, because I watched it in close succession and like binged it, I don't think I had like the fatigue, right? I was kind of like, oh, let's see what he'll do next, as opposed to like, here's another week of us like watching David. It's kind of like, okay, let me get through this next episode, because I think he plays from the front like he is an underdog. He still plays a very aggressive game. Like, this isn't Boston Rob telling everybody, we can't talk to anybody. Nobody can talk to anybody. Don't make any friends. If you make a friend, we're going to vote you out. That's boring to me. But when Phoebe comes to him like, okay, listen, I'm down and out, but I have an idol clue. And he's like, really? Where's that? And she's like, okay, it's in the termite mound. He's like, oh, over there? You should go look over there, as he goes in the other direction and goes and gets her idol. That to me is exciting. It's not the same as like you being like, and to me, I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's perfect. If someone tells you, like someone you are against tells you, I need a thing. I have a thing. And then they give you, it's like, what did Parvati say? You handed me your heart and then I'm just going to stab it a bunch and eat it. You know, like you handed her the keys to the car. I mean, she handed you the keys to the car, and then you're like, okay, now go that way while I go drive off in it, you know? And I'm sorry, that's exciting to me. If it was more straightforward and it was just boring and it was just like, okay, like there's nothing you do, nobody will flip, nobody will do this, but he was playing aggressive and making sure those things weren't able to happen. Like getting all these items, he had 2 in that game.
Like Iron Man, like the 2 idols.
Yeah, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Like Boston Rob's not doing that. So that's what I'm saying. Like there's definitely ways that David stands out as a character. But I do think, again, if he's not doing that, I don't think he can win as necessarily as good as he does. You know, like Phoebe tells him he doesn't need Phoebe to have that idol. He doesn't. Like, you know, like I'm sorry if you didn't like it, but he didn't need it. And also, he's kind of petty. Like when he's like, I want to get like blindsiding Daisy was crazy, because not only did he blindside Daisy with this mold strategy, which was crazy to think about, he does the like shocked David face at the tribal council, and I'm like, this is incredible. Like the look on his face, like cartoony. There's nothing boring about the way he plays the game. Now the season might be straightforward and boring, but David is not.
Yeah, well, this is the thing about David. I think there are 2 types of David. Like there's the David that the players are playing with, who is so charismatic and likable, and people connect him so much that they were all just falling over themselves to lose the game for him. Like Sean would have taken him to the end. Like he had this, like, you know, he was hurting these goats who all just wanted to protect David, to get David the win. And that's what happens. And that's through these like really good interpersonal relationships. And that's not what we see in Confessional. Like we see David the showman. And I think as well, like I think any of the seasons could say that there was a disparity between, like, he's not, you know, the same David in Confessional as he is at camp with everyone else. I mean, obviously, people should have known that. They had just watched it. But they were won over by the charm. And I think, you know, I was talking about this, like, being in the deep dives with him, I can talk about personal dealings that I've had with David where, like, I think that kind of shines through. But people take him a different way as an audience. Either you see him as that showman completely, or you kind of connect with it and you might really enjoy the showman or not. So it's those 2 things. It's like, which way do you see him between these 2 versions of himself? And then how do you enjoy the way that you're perceiving him? I mean, like, this is like off the show, but like David, like, so I was thinking about this recently, like David, I remember like people being mean to me in David's comments of my first season of Talking Tribal, and he was like defending me. Like, why did he need to do that? And this is a really amazing story. I don't think I've ever told the story on the podcast. Okay. Have I told you the story on the podcast? There was someone who reached out because their friend was terminally ill and was not going to be able to finish at the time Brains v. Brawn won. His name was Luke, actually. And they wanted to try and get the episodes early, and like somehow got through to me, and we couldn't get the episodes for him. He actually ended up living a lot longer and got to see the season end and stuff, which was great. But we couldn't get him the episode. So he did this with no fanfare. I didn't know, no one's ever known the story until I guess I'm telling it right now. And I said, like, who do you really like from the show? Like, maybe we can get them to like send you a video or something. And he was like, I really like David. David FaceTimed with him for hours. Like he really made this guy's day. And it was like, I always think back on that. Like Dave, and like even David and I were speaking about it. Like he connected with Luke, who was the man who was ill, and like really cared and gave up like a lot of his time because he actually cared about it, and not to be David with the fanfare and anything like that. I just think that's an amazing story. Like I always think back at that, and I think how many of the people who see him as the showman see these other parts of David as well. They clearly are there to connect with people, and that's what works so well when he made these allies in both of the seasons, but certainly in All Stars.
He has a bunch of superpowers, right? Like his superpower is not only these like this creative gameplay that he's able to pull off and these ridiculous moves and finding idols and making fake idols. Like those are all cool, but his social game is really good. Like you said, people were falling over themselves to go to the end with him, and they were happy to vote for him. Like like they can say whatever they want, but that final tribal council, it's like he's just like talking to a group of his friends. Like he's holding court, like the things he's saying, he's got them eating out the palm of his hands. Okay. And so I have nothing negative to say about him. Like I'm sure he's like a great person in real life. I've never met him. I do owe him 2 beers now because I think I have to congratulate him for a couple things. So if he's listening to this, I still got you. But he will then take that, win this game. And again, there were several times where they should have been coming after him. They weren't able to because he plays so aggressively. But then he's able to go over to different shows. He comes over here to the United States, and then he goes and does more amazing things on Deal or No Deal Island.
Yeah, well, I mean, even like I think like with the Phoebe thing, was that in between her 2 vote outs? Because Phoebe was like voted out, and then she made Fire and stayed. And then I think the idol thing was that in between that. So
it was after.
Right. Yeah. So Phoebe was like on death's door. You know what I mean? Like I think that and she earnestly like wanted to work with him. I think that's why I definitely felt at the time it was a little bit too far because she had nothing, like, and she was actually like trying to invest in him. And he was just like, in ways, like he cut that relationship and he found other relationships that really worked for him and like good for him strategically. But he was like mugging to the camera. Like that's the David Sherman that was coming out, but it was doing it in a way where like you're so much the leader. And like the way he controlled All Stars was just with like an iron grip. I think that you can say like after the Daisy move, which was I think a lot for TV, and he like really created that like fake blindside face and like he was the mole vote. I think that they said like had they gone back to tribal for a swap, like David would have been in trouble there. So like that maybe is like a big concern for him. And that's maybe more of like the 2019 version of Dave where he's doing these big moves, somewhat for strategy, somewhat for TV. And then like Sean Hampson has been kidnapped over and now you're in trouble. Like that's more of that kind of up and down. But then after that, I struggle to think of a time where there was any gap. Like he just dominated so much. There was a little bit where like Shawnee pulled Jackie over and they took out Zach over 1 whole week of Exile Island. And even that was like, they kind of needed the week. And then even then he protects, like he plays an idol on Tarzan. He wins immunity at the final 8 so that they really pressure Sean not to go to rocks. And then he just protects from there. So it's so comprehensive. And that's what we say about like any of these like really dominant wins, which you can talk about. Like often like the Redemption Island, the Kim Spradlin, we'll talk about Rob Bentley, like aren't necessarily the best TV because it's just like good for him. Like he dominated so much. And that's him in Australian Survivor. But yeah, then Dundee, and then in Dundee he won $6 million. And he's doing well, Chappell.
So I have one last thing about David and Survivor All Stars, I think. And I think for me, it's just the I don't know. To me, it's like it's his ability to kind of maneuver around people's faves. I think that's probably why people were watching All Stars and not loving it, right? So like he comes in with an axe to grind against Daisy, right? And the blind side is very fun, but like if you're a Daisy fan, you probably don't love that. Same thing for the Phoebe fans. I liked Phoebe, so I was very much a fan of her. But by this time, like I said, I was rooting for David because he was who I came in to watch. But even like Harry is another person. Nick, there are other people that fall victim to David's game that I think if it's me, like, and again, I watched all these seasons in succession, like very closely, but I loved Australian Survivor's cast for All Stars. Like I was like, oh, that person, like it felt so good. And so I could just imagine how annoying it is to watch Nick go out because Harry doesn't do the thing to stop the tribal council. And immediately after that, they're like, oh, now we're merged. Look at that. Like Nick was like 1 vote away from it. Like it's like things like that would drive me crazy. So I could see it. He's taking out like Lockie and like, like
I don't know if Lockie was anyone, but Phoebe for sure. Phoebe Nick and sure. Yeah, Nick like and then it was like the underdogs that were like Shawnee, Brooke,
Right, Shawnee,
okay, Harry, yeah.
right. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
He's coming for your faves, and I can imagine that's annoying. Now, so I understand that because these people were people I came to know and root for as well. Like I'm a big Harry fan, and so I was like, and of course, who isn't a Shawnee fan? Thank God she's going to be on this season as well. But yeah, I was like, if I was rooting for them, I would be sick of him, but I wasn't. I was rooting for David.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was hard for me because I was definitely rooting for David high up. But yeah, every other person I was rooting for fell into, David's orbit, and that was their demise. I mean, it was really hard when it was Nick, to be honest. It was not good for me mentally when it was Nick. But like that's why David did it strategically, because he can't create a cult of sheep that is Shawnee, Harry, and Brooke,
Right.
and then they'll vote him out. Like, but he can do it with the group that he had, and that he chose his allies correctly. Like he found the right people who were like, we'll take you to the end, David. And and he probably even knew, he's like, this isn't going to be great TV, but I'm going to win this damn season. Like if this is the one time where I'm just going to have it on lock with people who aren't necessarily going to make the most riveting television, like he had to sacrifice a little bit of the TV to be a Survivor winner.
I mean, even then though, like you bringing Moana to the end, you are asking to be the star of the season, okay? Because she's not going to give you anything on the show. And like, no disrespect, she was a good player, but I mean, boring television. She made it. Yeah, I was like, well, look, she played a good game. I will say that she made it to the end. All that good stuff. Seemed like she had a solid grip on some things, but above all, boring. And so when you do that, you're begging for more screen time, I will say. And so, yeah, I think that might be even strategic too. I mean, he literally voted off Harry so that he could have more days than Harry. Taste.
Things about this stuff. And you say he's a little petty. He's a lot petty. Like he thinks, and then, yeah.
Who doesn't love petty? He also didn't know. Hold on, pause. And he also, I don't think he was a fan of the show going in, was he?
No, I doubt he was like spreadsheeting. So it's more. He's not that he has Survivor spreadsheets. It's like he has David spreadsheets, and he can work out where Harry is into the proxy of his experience.
Yeah, because I'm like, he didn't know that. I'm like, he heard that from somebody and was like, oh, bet. And like how many days do I have before I can get him? Like that's kind of, to me, that's exciting. I love to see inventive things like that, but also it's a little flair. Like you said, a showman. You're not getting that from every good Survivor player.
But it's also the showman pettiness. Like I think a lot of that is invented. Like how much is he actually still mad at Daisy, and how much is it like from a TV perspective it makes sense narratively? Like David, like someone like George, is always thinking about the TV product.
Yeah.
Do you think he was actually mad at Daisy, or do you think
no? But the Daisy vote, it like you said, it's like the pettiness on top of this is a really good move, because not only does he get Daisy voted out, he flushes 2 idols while he does it. That's the part we didn't talk about.
True.
Like
they play it on him. Brooke plays it on him.
He is flushing Matt's idol, because he's telling Matt to play the idol. They don't know.
Well, I think that was going to expire, to be fair.
Well, yeah, but anyway, he knows Matt needs to play it on himself, right? Because that's the thing. They don't know where the votes are going. Matt is on the mole strategy, so he's going to play it for himself. That's cool. Bet. Then he has the sense to be like, oh,
well, no, Matt played it for Jackie, I think, right?
Yeah, whatever. Matt plays it for the right person.
He knows Matt's in the minority with an expiring idol. He's definitely gonna play it for someone. David directed him to play it for the right person. Right. And then Brooke found an idol he didn't want to play on
the
Daisy.
Votes. Yeah. Yes. So Brooke could just sit on this idol, but David's like, play it for me, and he doesn't need it. And so it's like, yes, that's why those moves. It's like they're petty, but it's like this strategy, and then it's pettiness, and then somehow they become one. And I think that's why he's a good player.
Well, Dave, like if they had voted, like if they played the idol on Jackie and they actually had voted for like Mo Hope, then Brooke's obviously not playing her idol for majority, but she wasn't worried about the bounce back. So at the point where they've hit correctly, Brooke's going to play her idol. He made sure that not only would she not play it on Daisy, that she played it on him. And then Daisy went home. But I think the pettiness is interesting, having watched him on Celebrity Apprentice, which ended up being an important part of this. I'm trying to watch like every season that these players are on.
Yeah.
I think the one I'm not going to get to, like I'm not going to watch Luke on Big Brother. Like I can't do that. But I think I'll get to pretty much everything everyone else did, a lot of which I had watched. And even like, again, on The Apprentice, like he's really playing up the Janine thing. Again, Janine is not a contestant on the show, and she's playing it up too. Even when they get rid of David, she's like, haha. I'm like, David and Janine, I'm sure, are friends. But I
Right.
still don't think that friendship will protect necessarily Janine from the fact that I think David will still do that in the season. Like, I'm sure like Janine and David have hung out many, many times and like have a good relationship, and all of that is like so water under the bridge for 2019. And he won a subsequent season and then went on The Apprentice, and now they're on this together. But I can still imagine that David will be like, but I'm getting revenge against Janine, because it narratively makes sense for the Survivor fans who know them in that space, and that'll be important to him. Because David, will talk about this, and we'll talk about Dundee. The people who didn't watch Dundee, we did some content on Dundee about David winning on this feed as well. But David is like, to me, the center of everything in this season, because David has Luke and Janine, and he knew Sarah from before. I think even either of them played, certainly before David played,
Top
from
Model.
being a model. Yep, well, not from Top Model, but just from being a model. And then Luke knows Kirby. So that's 5 people on that tribe. And David's played with Shawnee, but do you think, like, you just watched it, how do you think David and Shawnee's relationship will be? Because Shawnee voted for him to win, but again, they were on opposite sides the whole time. And we said it was frustrating watching it happening to our faves. She was that fave. Like, it was happening to her. So I'm sure it was very, very frustrating for Shawnee, who definitely got some small wins as an underdog there and did some amazing work, but was up against David's power the whole time in very frustrating ways.
One of my most embarrassing tweets was, I was first watching Australian Survivor for the very first time, and I was a couple episodes in, and I tweeted out, "This Shawnee lady is amazing. I wonder, like, do people like her? Is this a thing? Because I love her."
Did you discover
and
Shawnee?
Yeah. I discovered Shawnee like 8 years after everybody else had already done the things. And I was bombarded with like, where have you been? What are you talking about? DMs were sent, like people are sending me all kinds of things.
I think I was part of that. I think I was like, oh, like that's like being like, oh, does anyone know like Taylor Swift? Does anyone ever heard of that? It's like 2025.
Yeah. Exactly. So even though I go into the season knowing that David wins, it's hard for me not to be pulling for Shawnee as well. You know, I get that. And so he's in a very interesting spot. I don't know. Shawnee's amazing. So I don't know if this is like, oh yeah, now Shawnee's going to be aligned with David, but she's competitive. And I think a lot of the people that know each other, like from the Australian Survivor sense, they're very competitive people. I don't think Janine is looking forward to letting David beat her at anything, you know, so although he's like really tied to these people, I think aside from Luke, I don't think he can really count on any of them. I think that all of them, including Sarah, are like, if he's exposed, it might be time to get rid of him.
Yeah, I mean, I think George is in a world of pain. I think this is we'll talk about it on the George podcast. It's like a terrible, I couldn't think of a worse like setup for George here. Like, not only is he outside of that group, but if David cares about how many days Harry's playing past him, I know that George and David, both of them look at a very competitive and similar confessional count for the two of them. Like, David will take out George from a screen time perspective, let alone the fact that I don't think they have much of a relationship going in, and George is not connected to everyone the way that David is. So I don't see that being good, but mostly for George, I think David will win that battle. I think there's a terrible spot for George. And then David is also going across the aisle. Like, David goes across the aisle to Parvati, and we can talk about that through Dundee. Parvati has Suri. So that, to me, as I've said on every podcast, is like, that's the group. Anyone in that group is a possible winner pick, and I wouldn't pick anyone outside of it because I just think it's so clear, like it's so connected. But yeah, I mean, tell the people about David and Parvati, because I think if you didn't watch Dundee, people are going to be surprised by how much. And just to give the timeline, like Dundee's going to be so much, I think, of the emphasis of this season, and it had just filmed. I think what the story is like, David goes to Dundee, bonds with Parvati so much, like they're so close. Like, people could never envision how close they are playing out there. Even if they said, oh, we were really close, you would never understand it, I feel. And then David wins and Parvati goes, but David never has to turn on her because she just loses Deal or No Deal, because that's how Dundee works. And then I think he wasn't going to be playing Australian Survivor. Parvati was going to be playing Australian Survivor. And then the story goes that I think that they were like, should I play Australian Survivor? Like, I just won 9 million Australian dollars. You're playing. And I think David was added very late in the piece, largely because of that relationship with Parvati. So yeah, talk about the Dave Parvati situation we've got going
on. David plays what, 84 days of Survivor, or something like that, right? Something like that.
That makes sense. 50 days of the winning All Stars, and yeah, it would be about that. Probably about a month of 2019.
And he's probably made a ton of allies. I mean, he spent months with these people essentially, and he does not have a closer ally than Parvati. That, like, if you did not watch. And if you did not watch Dundee, if you didn't watch Dundee, I would suggest that Parvati and David are closer allies than Luke and David.
That's crazy. I don't think I agree.
You watched Dundee, and they were in lockstep every second of the game. Like, I don't think there was any ever anything they did that they weren't aligned with, like at any point. I just don't see, like, I know and I understand he's known Luke for years. I get that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. Like
But
he and Luke both were based in Perth. Like he and Luke were in lockstep. Like Luke doesn't vote him out. He and Luke are together every single second through the pre-swap,
they
swap.
get switched. Yeah, they get swapped, right?
No, they get swapped together.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They get swapped together with their.
But then to be fair, they've also had years of being like close personal friends. Not saying that he and Parvati aren't close, but I think Luke for me first out of anyone.
The fact that I'm questioning it should, if you didn't watch Dundee, you should know. You should know. Like I just watched this man play with Luke twice, essentially. And I watched him play with Parvati, and I was just like stunned at how well they got along. It's like the two best social games in the world, like the two most charming people, I would say, met each other. And instead of like, there can only be one, they're like, what if we put our charm together? Like, what if our charm is combined and we are a larger charming entity? And they go on and they do that, and they basically dominate Dundee from beginning to end. At no point is Luke in danger of going home. He even manages to like trick a guy into giving up immunity so he could cut him at the end. And the guy still decided to help David out in the game later on. It's incredible how close he got with Parvati. The watching them play, which is like, you would think they have known each other for years. And they just knew each other from like Survivor. That was it. It's like, we have a Survivor connection. We shouldn't be targeting each other because these newbies are going to target us. They were two of the three celebrity quote unquote players on the season, the other one being Dr. Will. And at no point was David in danger. At no point. Like Parvati only really gets in danger one time, and at that point she's gone. But David, no. And then a large part of Dundee was the social game. By the end, you had to have like, the way you treated the other players actually mattered. If they were able to give advantages or disadvantage people in the game. And David was not disadvantaged by these people. Like they came in and they were willing to like go to bat and let him walk right over them into the win again. He did it on two different shows, and they didn't even know he was David from Survivor. Like one person did, but nobody else did. Like nobody knew. It's not like that he came in and they were starstruck, right? It's like, oh, it's David from Survivor. They just like, oh, this is a big blonde dude. I should like work with him. And he created a family structure where like he's like Parvati is like the wife, he's the husband, and then they have two kids, and then they have like a kid's boyfriend, and like there's a whole thing. And he just ran it. Like they didn't touch him. He was untouchable the entire game. And then he goes on to win record-breaking amounts of money in a game that I would say that if Dundee the season was entertaining, the last episode of Dundee is one of the best things I've ever watched on TV.
Yeah, I know people who just watched the finale. I know my brother, like, I'm like, just watch the finale. It's fine. And he did. I think a lot of people, I mean, you can still watch it now. Even if you know what's going to happen, honestly, go watch the finale of Dundee. It's just like watching, and now you know, but we spoiled it for you. But like, it's just like watching one really high-stakes episode of Dundee, of actual Deal or No Deal, which David is playing. I think that there's a lot of elements of Dundee which speak to, and we talked about this after the season, but which speak to everything David brings. There's definitely the social aspect. I mean, he has, what was it, Dixon? Dixon is like, you're a father to me. You are a father to me, David. Like you said, they weren't starstruck by him, but they were awed by him in a way that people can be. And it's not even about his reputation. It's literally just about how he presents. So I think that social aspect is clear. He, again, lied about being on Survivor or being an ex-reality TV contestant. And then the jury, so to speak, went and he didn't know this, were like, and I've always thought this was crazy. They were, when they were not voted out, but they lost Deal or No Deal, and they went to the hotel, they got their phones back so they could look up, oh, David, you won Survivor. Oh, you're like the biggest name probably in Australian Survivor, if not, well, we had this conversation. The biggest, or maybe top two, him and George are kind of the two for me, but certainly, I mean, David's in like that hosting role, and they could have been really mad, and it could have screwed him in a way that we'd be like, that was so unfair. He didn't know that they were going to have their phones. Had he known that, he probably never would have lied about it because it would come back to bite him. And instead, all of the players who have the opportunity to help or hurt people in the final challenge, they still like him enough that he's able to smooth that over in the challenge, and they still help him to get to the win to play Deal or No Deal. And then I think the other part of it, as we talk about, it's the risk-taking TV aspect, which he's going to do even more of now because he's so financially sound. Like, and he still did it without the money. He did it in the final game of Deal or No Deal, where he has an insane, what was it, like 12 million in the final case. And then he just had like dinner money. He had like $25, $50, $75. It's like, if you reject the deal, which he did multiple times, he was rejecting millions of US dollars, converted even more, although I think he lives in the US now. But still, he rejected millions of dollars knowing if he ever hit the 12, he was going home with enough money to not even get dinner for 2 people. Like, he could get dinner maybe for himself and cover some of the bill, no drinks. And he still did it. And he talked about this, I think, in the exit with you as well, and with Mike, that like a large part of him is like, I want to give them a show. And he knew this would be massive. And David wants to win a lot of money. But at the end of the day, if you're turning down millions of dollars and you're either going to be the biggest winner or the biggest loser, but you will be making headlines. And I think that matters to David. He was not going to do the conservative thing from a TV perspective. And now he also has the financial safety net. And we don't even know how much money they're winning on AUV World. I've never heard how much the prize money is for the season. But I don't think that'll matter to him. So I think we're going to see David at his most risk-taking swings. Like, if David is playing All-Stars after Dundee, I think it looks like a different game. Because I think at the point, well, and also if he's a Survivor winner. But like at the point of wanting to get the win, the money and all of that, he did a death grip on the season. And he did sacrifice some good TV to do that. But I think in a similar situation now, if he has a death grip on AUV World, I bet he does something to explode it just for fun, just to be like, no, I want this to be a memorable season and I want to be a big part of that. And I bet that's like his number one priority.
Yeah, but even with the deal or no deal game at the end, he's taking these big risks. He's making good TV, fine. But it was also something about watching it. It was watching somebody who almost was moving with purpose, right? Like, it's like he's turning down his money and he's telling us, no, I have a feeling that's telling me that this I have to keep going. I know it. You know, it's like all reason is saying, stop it. There's $3 million on the table. Stop it. There's $4 million on the table. And he's just like, no, I can't stop it right now because I know I'm good. Like, it's like it was this flashiness aligning with the gameplay. It was like he had already decided what he was going to do. And, you know, win or lose, he was going with it. And it just worked out in his favor to where, like you said, had he gotten the wrong case, he's leaving with almost nothing. Like, he had $75 in his case. This man ran the bank up to $12 million and just stopped. There was 3 cases. He could have just you at that point, you're like, well, you're here now. You might as well just go for it. Who knows?
No.
You passed up all these other numbers, and this is where you draw the line. It's like you should have drawn the line two turns ago, 3 turns ago, 4 turns ago. Nobody would have been upset had he left with $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. This man did this in the entire time. So I don't think it's not just flashiness, right? It's like there's almost like another level of it. Like when he's locked in, he's locked in. Yeah. I maybe $5.8 million. You don't win that by playing conservatively, but you also, but maybe you do, right? Maybe you do win that by playing conservatively. He just doesn't.
Yeah. I think 99% of people, 99.99% of people, like at a point he had all the low numbers and 12 million and 1 million. For me, okay, you keep projecting while you have the 12 and the 1, because worst case scenario, you knock out the 12, you still have $1 million, and then you're offered like 300 grand US, and like that's a pretty good day at the office. That's as much as you want on Survivor, and like it's upsetting that you gave up more, but like you don't walk out with again enough money maybe for the cab ride home, depending on how far away your hotel is. Like at the point where he knocked out the $1 million and it was 12 million or nothing, that was pure insanity. That's the kind of insanity, I can only use that word, electric showmanship that almost no one in the world has. That's what catapults someone to being one of the names, if not the name of a franchise, and that's what David is. That embodies it.
And I think that, you know, I don't know who's going to win AU versus the world, because there's so many incredible players that all bring like different skill sets, and there's all these pre-existing relationships as well. So maybe David goes in and they're all like, we're not doing this with you. We're not about to let you run this game again. We're just gonna vote you out. Maybe that happens. But I think we would be robbed of what could be incredible television from somebody who is known to step up to the plate and give us that. And if David is to win, again, it might be boring if you were like hoping your faves are able to get over on him or able to upset the apple cart or to switch anything around, but he won't be boring. David won't be boring. The show might be boring, but he will never be boring.
Yeah, I think if David wants 2 things out of the season, it'll be not necessarily to win, but it will be to make good TV and to prove himself against some of the other biggest names in global Survivor. I think that'll be a really, and do I think he can win? If there's any setup that he can win in, it's probably this. I think he'll do very well. I still think that his name is so clearly the middle of everything that at a point you come for him. So I wouldn't make him my winner pick, but like he's high up there because again, he's the nexus of everything. But it's interesting because I was talking about this a little bit offline with you before. I'd love to get your take on the Rob, Tony, David of it all. Because for me, where I sat and you just watched Rob Bentelay's game, from 2019 to the beginning of 2020, over like 9 months, we watched what we at the time described as like, are these the 3 best games in Global Survivor history? Rob Bentelay, who did it with newbies, David, who did it in All-Stars for 50 days. That's to me the unique thing about David. And then Tony, who did it against all winners. And those are the differentiators of all. But the similarity that they all had was that they dominated alone. It wasn't like a Steven and JT thing. You know what I mean? Like they did this completely alone in very interesting circumstances each time. And I kind of think that the best of those games is, to me, the best game in Survivor history. And I'm like, am I just too high on these games because I like only recently started podcasting or something? Like, and I look back now, I'm like, no, it's been years. And I do think those are in the conversation. Maybe you talk about like Kim Spradlin and maybe Boston Rob, but like those are 3 of the top 5, if not 3 of the top 3. Who do you look at as the best winning game between Tony, Rob, and David's winning games? Or, well, Tony Winners of War.
So Tony's is really hard to like criticize at all. You know, like that's like I'll come back to Tony because I'd have to really like think about it. Because Tony is beating it's Winners at War. This isn't All-Stars. He's beating some of the greatest players to ever play Survivor. They've won. They've never been voted. Some of them have never been voted out. So it's like some of these people don't know how to lose Survivor, and Tony had to introduce them to that. Okay, so that's a big deal. Rob, however, Rob's game was very interesting to me because Rob was doing the, hey, we're a family. This is loyalty. We're all in this together. And he really was relying on his social bonds with people. Like it wasn't as flashy as David's game was. It wasn't as flashy as Tony's game was. But Rob had people like, no, I'm going to the end with Rob. The jury is telling them, Rob is going to beat y'all. And they're like, I don't know. We'll see. I'll sit there and find out. Like that's the latch that he had on people. I don't know if Rob could do that again, ever. Like, I don't know. Because, like, that type of bond he had with those people, like, they were voting each other out, like, crying when they were finding out people were voted out. Like, I forgot his one ally, but he never let it go. Like, that guy did not make it to the swap, and he was like, what? And I mean, like...
to the swap?
Yeah, I think they got swapped, and when they got back together, he was gone.
Nathan.
Nathan, dear God. Nathan's hobbling around on one leg, like he's not doing anything in any challenge. And Rob is just like, that was my best friend ever. And everyone's like, oh my God, you're right. And so am I. I'm also your best friend. So Rob had like a very different skill set than David. David will get a target on his back, but David is going to do the flashy thing to get the target off his back. Tony probably played a more covert game than David ever has. You know, as far as like Winners at War, I think there was a lot of other stuff going on in front of Tony. And so when he started to run, he took off and they couldn't stop him. He's going downhill to the end and there was nothing they could do. But I think David across the board was just playing way harder than both of those people. I'm talking about the alliances, the idols, the fake idols, you name it. He was doing it and he was ahead. He was doing all of this from the front. You know what I'm saying? I think Tony at some points were like just kind of like laying back. He was letting other things happen. There was times where Sophie was the front runner. There were times where other people were in charge of the game. David was always taking control of the game. You know, he wasn't necessarily in the majority alliance the entire time because of swaps and all, you know, how Australian Survivor be. But whenever he had a chance to take control, he had it and he maintained it until the very end. So I'd probably say that David is, of the 3, my favorite game. But some would say that more dominant game would mean you don't have to do all that stuff. You know, like I just did it. Rob got in an alliance. He did the things necessary. I think he had a couple of advantages, but everybody did in that season. And he made it to the end and won, you know? So I don't know. What do you think? I think the level of difficulty for Rob and Tony is probably higher than, David and Tony's probably higher. Yeah, it's probably higher because they're playing multiple time players, sometimes, you know, winners and stuff like that. But I think that regardless, David played just way more aggressively than both of those 2 players had to.
Yeah, I think Tony's win is definitely my favorite. And I think maybe for me the best, like the way he did it and coming in with his reputation against winners, I think it's hard to go past that for me. In saying that, like we're really now like splitting hairs between, again, what I'm calling the 3 best games probably in Global Survivor history. I mean, Rob's, again, newbies who, you know, come back and do pretty well. But I think that like, yeah, I mean, compared to All-Stars, compared to winners, but then the differentiator that David has is it's on 50 days. That's the thing for me. It's like, you had so much time. How did you let this happen? You had so much time. You can't say that it just passed you by. So to do it for that like extra 11 days for me is so impressive. I mean, they all have the similarity of making a group of people the audience didn't really like and then just commanding them to the end and then winning. So in that way, they're all so impressive. I think I'd probably go like Tony, David, Rob. I think that's probably it. But look, they're all going to be on the season together, which is crazy. That's what's crazy to me.
I think Tony and David could do what they did again. I do.
Well, Tony kind of did. So
like I'm saying, like I think they could do it. Like they could replicate that. I don't know about Rob yet, just because again, Rob's game was so social. It was more like Boston Rob and Redemption. Yeah, it was more like Boston Rob and Redemption Island, right? Where it's like there was strategy for sure, but his main strategic move is we don't break the ranks. We don't let other people in unless I say we do. And by the time Rob plays in South Africa, he's doing the same exact thing. People are like, there's no pecking order. There's no pecking order at all. Okay, cool. And now you're going, and then it's like, or when Rob says that you betrayed the family, you're going. And it was like that throughout the entire game to the point where people are literally begging them. The other thing is that Rob, he wins immunities too. That's the other thing that he has. Tony showed up as an immunity beast as well.
Yeah, Tony was winning, and David's won.
Yeah, and David's won too. So they all have like the ability to get far enough to just start winning stuff. But this is not going to be one of those seasons where you're up against people who are easily beaten. Kirby is on this season, and we know when a girl decides that she's going to win a challenge, she's just going to win the challenge, and there's nothing you can do to stop her. And so I would love to see what this looks like now that they're all against each other. But it is tough because those are 3 of the most impressive winners that I've seen for sure.
Yeah, I mean, looking now, so David wins the 3 immunities, the final 2, and the one at 8, where he was immune, and he played the idol on Tarzan. Rob wins, 5 immunities. Tony wins at least 3. Maybe, yeah.
I think he won 3.
Yes, and Tony, to be fair, Tony won against the Edge, which is such an unfortunate thing. Like, we see from a jury perspective, from everything, like, to win against the Edge, which is such an advantage in many ways, is so impressive. I think it's Tony, David, Rob for me, but like, and then everyone else in global Survivor history probably, and Kim Spradlin's probably around there as well. So yeah, they're all going to be in a season together, Chappell, and we're excited about it. Very excited.
And I'm going to be your lovely co-host throughout the season. I'm very excited. I'm claiming that right here on the podcast.
We're going to do the dailies.
Yeah, I'll be there every day.
I love the dailies. Yeah. Yeah. We were firing Puya and Mike. You heard it here first.
I mean, they could come too, but I'll be there. They can come whenever they want. But like you and I, we gotta, because these are our people now. Like now that we are all about global Survivor coverage. Shannon, I'm so happy that you've invited me to join you.
Yeah, I regret it every day.
I know, and I
think about it. I think, why did I
love that for me. As long as it's on your mind, that's all that matters.
It keeps me up at night. It's been great. It's gonna be great. We're doing this preseason. We're telling everyone about all of the players. Next, I think will be Shawnee. So that's going to be fun. We're going to talk about
who you got for the Shawnee podcast. I'm nosy.
Zach Werdenberger.
Zach can't give you what. That's my mom. That is my mother.
You want to be Shawnee and Sari and David?
Why not?
Chappell.
Okay, fine. Zach can do it. Okay, I'll allow
as well. You want to do all of your moms.
All of my moms. Yeah, that's the big 3 moms, and then Kirby
David,
as well.
Yeah, Kirby. Well, Kirby, no. We've got Liana and Kirby.
Okay,
who I think will be actually after Shawnee.
I trust her. I trust her.
She loves Kirby. Okay,
I do too.
Did pretty well trying to delineate the. Okay, so
we'll see.
But this has been a lot of fun. Chappell, where can the people find you and what you're doing?
All social media platforms at Recap Kickback. I'm podcasting about whatever I want, and I have this long running season series where I'm talking about the flavor of love over my podcast. And so if you have ever watched the things that New York Tiffany Pollard did in her first time on television, then you know it's cracked, and we're talking about it over there. We also got weekly coverage of other things, and then by the time this drops, Big Brother is going on to catch me on WeKnowRealityTV.com, aka RHAP, talking about Big Brother every week, hopefully with recent winner of The Traitors, Rob Cesternino. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what's going on with this series. Like, when are we releasing it? I plugged it at different times, but I don't know because I don't know when the season is out. But I want to get the content to you so that we're all prepared. For someone who like kind of needs everything to be planned and like gets really anxious when it's not planned, being the person who covers Australian Survivor with it, they might be like, it starts next week, is not good for me. But I'm just trying my best to get that content out. So thank you all for listening. At Shannon Gates, the We Know Global Survivor feed, subscribe to that, then you don't miss it. Okay. So then whenever it comes out, you get it. And that's, I think, the most important thing. But thank you all for being along on the journey with us. We will see how David does and what happens in AUV World. Very exciting. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Chappell. Thank you to our team behind the scenes. And I will see you next time. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.